Okay, while Susan's doing that, I'm Becca Zirkin. I'm one of the co-directors of Neighbors on Call. Susan Blunt is the other co-director. She's going to share a screen with you in a moment. We are really glad you're here because we know that this is really important for us to learn how to do no matter what our feelings about it are. And Sean, we thank you so much for letting us do this training in conjunction with the phone bank today so we can do it with a live demo. Everyone's welcome to stay as long as they like to hear this, but if you feel like you're ready to go make phone calls, by all means go do that. And the Google Hangout chat that Robin mentioned before, she put that in the, she put a link in the chat here. That's for people who want to go off and do their phone banking without our training. That is our usual thing. And so by all means, go ahead and do that if you feel ready. Otherwise, stay here and we're going to do all our chatting right here in the Zoom chat. The goal here is to learn to like, or at least to tolerate phone banking, and you may grow to love it, as Isabel already does, which would be a real bonus, or you might feel more like me, and for me it's just kind of like going to the gym. I do it because I know it's important, and once I get there, I get into it, and it's fine, and however you feel about it is totally okay. It's equally important work no matter what. So before we go any further, I'd like to ask everyone, except for the presenters, to turn off your video because it helps us with the network traffic. And so at the bottom of your screen, you have a little thing that says, bottom left says stop video. And we would love a chance another time to tell you more about Neighbors on Call. We're hosting a What is Knock program on July 1st at 7:30, and we open our doors at 7 to doors, they're all virtual doors, to chit chat for that first half hour and get to know each other, and that's always fun. And at that time, we'll tell you lots more about our group and our goals and our plans for 2020. So we'd love to see you there. For today, our training's in two parts. So first, we're going to be sharing a lot of information with you that we've collected from phone bankers and the campaigns. And Susan Blunt and Sean are going to talk a little more about what phone banking is accomplishing and how important it is, because one of the first questions people have is, does this work? Vicky's going to share some great strategies for staying motivated. Dina's going to share very helpful tips about phone banking, and Susan Lindsay's going to go over the basics of recording the data, which is hugely important for the campaign. At the same time that all that's happening, Isabel is going to be making real phone calls from Sean's list, and she'll be muted until she gets somebody on the phone. So that could take a while, or it could happen all the time. And so we're going to be really flexible. And as soon as she reaches someone on the phone, we're going to cut to her so we can hear her side of the conversation and how she's using the script. So we're going to be really nimble and flexible, and there's obviously a lot of room for chaos in this whole plan. So be patient with us. If we hit a glitch, we'll power through it. It'll all be fine. And for the second part of the session, we're going to encourage you to give it a try. So we'll still be here. Isabel will still be dialing. You can still watch her live demo and stay with us, but you can also go try for 20 minutes, come back, report in, let us know how it went. So we're gonna encourage you to do the practice part for the second portion. And Susan, can you unshare the slides, please? We got lots of people helping us out. Sanji's controlling everything behind the screen. Sean, you already know from the campaign, Susan Blunt, and Vicky, and Dina, and Susan Lindsay are our presenters. You can wave those folks. Patience is going to be pulling questions out of the chat. So if you have questions for the presenters, or for, including Sean, who's going to stay with us for this first part, or for Isabel, put those into the chat, and Patience will be reading those out. And Bonnie is our point person for this chat. So normally when you do a phone bank, we always have a support person from Neighbors on Call there answering your questions in the chat, and Bonnie's serving that role for us today here. And so that'll be especially valuable to you if you go give it a try in the second part. So now at the top of your screen, you can choose two views. There's speaker view or gallery view, and I recommend that you put it in speaker view now so that the presenter will come to the forefront of your screen. And if you haven't turned off your video yet, please do that. And I will now pass it to Susan and Sean to get us started.
Thanks, Becca. Let me just say that we have had some peculiar things going on in the Zoom so far that I unfortunately can't explain. I believe it's okay now. For a while there, people weren't able to chat to everyone, but it seems to be working better now. Mystery. I don't know. It's not our intention. So anyway, and if you feel like you're missing some of the pieces here, like some people didn't think they got the attachment with the coding reference guide, contact Bonnie. If you'll send a note to Bonnie, it's hard for me to send it to you while I'm talking at the same time. So as we all know, now I got it. This is a little bit like, you know, the patting your head and rubbing your stomach to do this screen sharing stuff while you're talking, but I'm going to do it. We all know we have a big election coming up in November, whether we want it or not, with the, sorry, there we go. Now, so sorry, here we are. We have a big election coming up in November, no matter what happens. And so that's why we are here today. We are laser focused on flipping at least one chamber of the North Carolina General Assembly. To do that, we need to win either 6 seats in the House or 5 in the Senate, preferably both. Here are the 4 North Carolina House candidates that we are working for. 2 who are in a good position to flip their seats, currently Republican held, and 2 who we helped get elected in 2018, and we want to make sure they retain their seats. We can't afford to lose a single one. Needless to say, our spotlight is on Sydney Batch, who it was great hearing her talk. She's so terrific. So that's our focus for this particular phone bank. Campaigning for House level races. What you wonder why we do that. Because we can have an enormous impact by reaching a relatively small number of voters when you're focusing on these state House legislations. We can help turn North Carolina blue all the way up the ballot by focusing down ballot. Remember, this is no ordinary election. It's a 10-year election. Whichever party controls the North Carolina General Assembly in 2021 will control the post-census redistricting. You know, we do redistricting every 10 years dictated by our U.S. Constitution. So let that soak in. How many court cases have we been involved in the past 10 years trying to undo the gerrymandering that got kicked off in 2010? We've got to get out of that mode. The way to end gerrymandering in North Carolina is to flip the legislature so that the Democrats are in charge. So that's the goal. Let's talk a little bit. Sean, let's have this interactive between you and me. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
All right, Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what a phone bank accomplishes. I think all of us started out among the skeptical. So let's talk a little bit about what it does accomplish. Earlier, there was mention of name recognition. Sydney mentioned that. I thought that was very interesting and valuable. I hadn't thought about how we'll be calling people who she did not represent in the past. So this is very important for them to say, yes, now your representative is, and she's great, and we would like to keep her in office. And then the elections, I'm gonna let Sean talk about this. You go through phases, but we're kind of in the cleanup phase now. Sean, you wanna talk about that with cleaning up lists for later on?
Well, sure, absolutely. I'll address a point that you brought up about a minute ago. I mean, our concern from the beginning with this election has been to ensure that folks know who Sydney is. We've got 3 very highly competitive statewide races going on between the president level, the governor election, and the Senate election. So our concern from the beginning is making sure that folks, stay in the ballot booth long enough to vote for Sydney, or go down the ballot if you request an absentee ballot, which is something that we are very much promoting right now, to vote for Sydney. So as it relates to cleaning up the list for the fall, I think we touched on it earlier during the presentation with the check-in, but Isabel's right. It's essential for us. The data quality is not very good here in North Carolina. For all of you folks who are first-time phone bankers, I don't know, maybe that's a relief that you actually won't be speaking with that many folks. The majority of the calls will either be voicemails or wrong numbers. But I can't stress it enough how helpful it is for us to know if we actually do have a verified cell phone number or home phone number for the constituents in this district. Because when we circle back with them towards the fall to make sure they're getting out to vote, we will be better able to identify them and to reach them, you know, with either a volunteer or a vendor or even Sydney herself. So it really makes a big difference. Susan, I think you're muted there.
Oh my.
There we go. Back.
There we go. Sorry about that. And so you think in the fall, that's when you'll be really, you want a really clean list so that you can knuckle down and get to work in the fall, right?
No doubt about it. And we've made tremendous progress thanks to our incredible partners with Neighbors on Call here. We've got some other wonderful partners across the country helping Sydney as well. So we've already got it started on it. And every phone bank it can make a huge difference.
Well, and I think we, fortunately, Sydney has already mentioned one of the things that we wanted to bring up in case, which is whether or not to leave a message. But it sounds like this campaign is saying good thing to do. And Sydney earlier gave us her email address and phone number. I put it in the chat. I think we could perhaps ask somebody out there, maybe Bonnie, can you put it in the chat again so people won't have to dig too far back to get it. If you see it, I would jot it down onto a little piece of paper, because these things in the chat will scroll out of sight. So jot down that phone number and the email address. They were both pretty easy. Any questions, patients for Sean from the chat? Or Bonnie, here, I'm unmuting you.
Some people are concerned about what voicemail message they would leave. So Isabel's gonna give us an example of that when she leaves a message for someone. And also Robin Schwartz, who is doing the Google chat, is gonna leave a sample message. And it looks like Dina has just put a sample voicemail message in the chat as well. So we've got a few different places where folks can get a sample voicemail message. That's all so far.
Good. Vicki, are you ready? Shall we turn it over to you? Where's Vicki? It's there are a lot of people on this thing.
And while Vicki's getting started, Isabel's going to start making phone calls. And so now if Isabel gives us the little hi sign, we will go to her. All right.
Got one now?
Oh, she's got one.
No, you're just showing. She's showing us that she will signal by waving her little multicolored pad.
I will do this, and I will also unmute myself. But I've been making calls and haven't gotten through to anyone yet, just telling you all I've been leaving some messages, and now I'm going back to the phones.
Good.
All right, Vicki.
Okay, hi everyone, thanks for coming. There's, as Becca said, there's a range of feelings that people have when they think about phone banking, from Isabel, who enjoys it and sees it as an opportunity, to me, who really dislikes it and seeks to endure it. And you're probably somewhere between those two poles. But there's something that we all agree on, and that is just how important this election is. And so I'm going to talk about 9 ways that we can stay motivated and take care of ourselves while we do this. And while I'm talking, I strongly encourage you to share your ways that you stay motivated and ways that you take care of yourself in the chat, so that we will all have access to each other's ideas and can support each other that way. So, number 1, plan a reward for yourself for after you've finished making your calls. It might be a walk, it might be a drink. I personally prefer margaritas as a reward for myself. It could be chocolate, it could be anything that works for you. And then also along the way, maybe every 5 calls or so, you might want to stop and just kind of pat yourself on the back and say, you know, I did it, way to go, congratulations to myself. Because for some of us, this is really, really hard. Number 2, you might place a reminder of your motivation beside your computer. I put these 2 books, Fear, Indecent Assembly and Democracy in Chains, because that helps remind me of why this is so important. But for some of you, it might be a picture of your grandchildren, whatever it is that really motivates you to keep going on this. Number 3, find your most comfortable chair, your most inspiring place to sit while you're making these calls. Might be your porch. If being outside is good for you, you don't have to stay inside. You know, just go where it works the best for you. Number 4, Review the candidate's website, or remember talking with Sydney Batch today. Isn't she amazing? I mean, that is why we're doing this. Ricky Hurtado, Nicole and Terrence, they're all wonderful candidates. And so just remind yourself about how important it is, because these are such amazing people that we're supporting. Number 5, tally your phone calls as you go. Just hatch marks so that you can keep up with how many calls you've made. It can really, you can feel like, oh, I'm doing this. But if you're doing 5, 10, 15, then you can see that you're making some progress. It's number 6, it's okay to take a break or two. You don't have to just kind of barrel through for 2 hours nonstop. You can take a break, you can stop when you need to. However many calls you make, that's how many more calls have been made, and we really, really appreciate that, and our candidates do. Number 7, and I think this one's really important. This is one I always use when I'm trying to psych myself up to do these calls again. Make brief notes about calls that have gone really well, and have them as a reminder as to why you're doing this, and some of what you accomplished, and also sometimes as an antidote for calls that don't go so well or don't feel so good. And if you would share those stories in chat right now, some of the calls that went really well, that would be helpful to all of us. And I'll just share a couple that I have experienced that have been helpful to me. One of the first phone banks that I did, and this was right after the pandemic hit, and I was feeling really anxious about doing this. I spoke with a woman who had lost her job, and she had 4 children. And she said, I asked her if she was getting food, and she said yes, that her mother, a 70-year-old African-American woman who worked in healthcare, was helping her out with food. And then she thanked me for calling. And she said, I always vote. I'm going to vote again this year, but it really does make a difference to be able to know good things about the people that I'm voting for. So that one I always remember. Recently, I spoke to a man in Wake County who said, quote, I am a white man. The Democratic Party needs me. Sign me up. And then one other one that I'll share is
Isabel, I am a volunteer with State Representative Sydney Batch's reelection campaign. How are you doing today, David? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Sydney Batch asked us to call around to see how you're doing in the face of, you know, the COVID virus and all the crazy stuff we're dealing with at this time. How are you? Your family's been doing okay too? Oh, I'm really happy to hear that. I know Representative Batch will be happy to hear that too. You know, as we look forward to the November election, is there a particular issue for you that's, you know, top of mind, of real concern to you? Well, I have to say I am totally with you there, and you know, I'm working on behalf of Representative Sydney Batch, because I think the down ballot candidates are also just so important, so that we get sort of a change in representation from the top all the way down. I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm with you. And Representative Batch has done such a great job for us here in Southern Wake County. You know, she's all about Medicaid expansion and public education and all of that. Again, any particular issue I might share with her that is of concern to you, even just locally, you know. Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to make a note of that in my notes and have her maybe touch base with you so she can share with you what she knows about the status of plans for that. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I wasn't really aware of that. So thank you so much. You can also check out more about her at her website. She's at sydneybatch.com, which is YDNEYBATCH. But in the meantime, I hope you'll join me in re-electing Sydney Batch come November, David. Great. Well, thank you so much, and you take good care. Bye. Young man, 30. So what do I look at? He's 31 years old, a male, unaffiliated. Interesting. His first issue of importance was getting Trump out of the White House. So immediately knew, okay, so he's clearly one of us. Yeah, I suppose I could have said and should have said Sydney was a Democrat. I didn't say that, but the nature of our conversation kind of conveyed that we were on the same page. His area of interest was the Wake County landfill. You know, so I don't know anything about that. He said it smells up the whole neighborhood. So I'm going to put that in the notes here and perhaps suggest that someone from the campaign just give him a call and check in about that.
Isabel, Amy pointed out that you did a fabulous job of mentioning Sydney Batch's name numerous times. Becca counted 6 times. So we just wanted to make the point that name recognition is so important, and you do a great job of making sure that the voter hears the name of the candidate.
Cool. I'm happy to move on with my calls because, you know, I'm all about making as many calls as I can.
You go, Isabel.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Isabel. We'll throw it back to Vicki.
That was great. Isabel is just such a marvel. We're really lucky to be able to see her in action. Just one more suggestion, or one more call that I made, that I keep this story in front of me, is that I had promised myself that I would make 50 calls, and I was on call number 47 before I spoke with someone who wanted to volunteer. But I was really glad I had hung in there for those 47 calls, and I did get through my 50th call. So number 8 is to have realistic expectations when you go into the calls. Phone bankers' hit rate will be low, often very low, as Sean said, but don't be discouraged. And as he said, some people are actually relieved when they're leaving messages and getting wrong numbers. So that's really important. And also to be prepared for the range of people that you might get on the call. Some people are going to be just really interested in talking with you and glad that you called, and some people are going to want to get off real fast, and some people are just going to hang up on you. And you know, whatever it is, you just you have whatever feelings you have, and you keep moving on. And then finally, number 9 is to commit to do it again. That's really, really important. This is very important work. Even though it may be hard, we have to keep going, and we will do whatever it takes to keep ourselves motivated and take care of ourselves while we're doing it, and keep moving forward. Thanks.
Vicki, thank you so much. That is really helpful. Now we're going to pass it to Dina, who's going to give us some concrete tips for while we're phone banking.
Becca, can we ask Vicki one question?
Oh, yeah, sorry, please.
Vicki, Olympia wants to know, why is phone banking hard for you? Is it because you're generally shy or something?
I just hate talking on the phone. I'm fine with talking with strangers, you know, in settings where I can pick up, you know, cues in a way that I cannot when I'm on the phone. And I just don't know what to expect, you know, whenever I'm dialing. And so it's just, it is not something I enjoy, but it is something I do.
Okay, great, thank you. And I just wanted to say, Chuck just put in the chat that Isabel is his role model, and he's fired up and ready to go, and he's jumping on the phone bank now.
All right, Gina, it's all yours. Oops. Dina?
Hey, sorry, some
Oh, there you are.
unmuting adventures there. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm just going to share a few pro tips for how you can feel prepared, organized, and supported when you're doing your phone banking. As I go, feel free to add your own tips and questions in the chat. First and foremost, let's talk about the script. feeling prepared for what to say and how to say it can make all the difference in your comfort level when you talk to folks. So we suggest review the script before you start calling. The script is usually sent as an attachment or link in the confirmation email that's sent the day before the phone bank. So you can choose to review it ahead of time if you want to, or just take a few minutes during the phone bank, block of time to review it before you start making the calls. Just read it out loud a few times, and maybe even ask somebody nearby to role play with you as you speak the script out loud. And then if you need to, consider modifying the script, within reason. Keep in mind the campaign crafted that script with priorities and messages that they think are important. So you don't want to change the meaning of anything in the script, but you want it to feel natural to you. So it's okay to say the same things, but using your own words. And it's also a good idea to open up the campaign website so that you're able to see some additional information about the candidate and talk to people. If you're going off script a little bit, you have that information to pull from. And of course, we've talked a bit about voicemail messages. Some campaigns suggest not leaving messages. Some campaigns are okay with leaving messages. So if it's okay to leave messages, notice if there's already a voicemail script provided for you, then check that out, modify it if you need to, and use that for leaving messages. Or if not, in our situation today, just craft your own, one sentence brief voicemail message that you can just turn to and recite when you need to, when you reach someone to leave a voicemail. The next thing I want to talk about is your support system. There are a variety of people from NOC and the campaign available to help support you and provide information to help you feel comfortable and knowledgeable throughout the phone banking process. Rest assured that you can reach out to any of these people. They value you and your time immensely, and they're happy to help you with anything you might need. So here's a list of who's who, roughly in the order that you'll encounter them throughout the phone bank. First is the phone bank coordinator. This is a person from NOC who will send you emails about the phone bank. You usually don't need to interact with this person, but you can email them if you need to. Like if you can't make the phone bank after all, just email them and let them know. And there's the NOC point person. This person's name and contact information is in an email that you'll get about an hour before the phone bank starts. And they make themselves available 30 minutes before the phone bank officially begins. So feel free to check in with them if you have any questions about getting started. Another person is the campaign manager, Sean in this case. The person works with the candidate and they'll be leading the Zoom meetings before and after we start calling. In the Zoom meeting before we call, they'll walk through the script and explain things and talk about who is on the call list, the types of people you will be reaching. Like, are they Democrats or unaffiliated, lower frequency, higher frequency voters, like Sean did. And then the campaign manager will bring folks back together after the calling time is over, and we'll talk about how things went and give feedback. And also there's the Google Hangout. It's a casual ongoing chat that is open to all the phone bankers. That's open the entire phone banking time. And the link to the Google chat, the Google Hangout chat is in that email you'll get the hour before the phone bank starts. You're more than welcome to join this. It's totally optional. This is the place where we ask each other questions and share information and just have encouragement for each other. And just technicalities about the Hangout. Some people download it on their phone, so it's separate from the stuff on their laptop with the phone banking record keeping. I personally pop it out as a small window, so it's on the laptop, but separate from the web page with the phone banking. So you can figure out a way to make it work for you if you do want it to be available. And last but not least, the moment of truth when you're making those calls. Above all, just remember that you only have to be yourself to make real connections with people and spread the word about these amazing candidates. If you fumble a few words or have an awkward interaction, it's okay. That's the way it goes sometimes. And so just a few suggestions help you bring your best self to the calls. One is find a quiet space, mute your devices, and try to reduce distraction so that you can focus on having great conversations. Another one is to try to avoid giving the impression that you're an outsider. For example, say something like, we're reaching out to people in the community today, rather than, this is Dina calling from Chapel Hill. Another thing is, I think as Sean and Sydney mentioned, if somebody is difficult, like if they're getting upset or trying to argue, you can just say thanks for your time politely in the call. And as Sydney explained, offer to have Sydney contact them and talk about their issue. And similarly, if somebody has a question you can't answer, just make a note and ask the campaign to follow up with them. If you don't know the answer to something, do not guess, just help them get to the right information. And really the bottom line is, with each and every call you make, you're helping build the path for this candidate to win. It's a lot of work, but we're sharing the load, and this is how we win.
Dina, thank you so much. Patients, are there questions for Dina?
Not specifically for Dina, but I did want to point out that this time the call list number is embedded in the link that you click to open virtual phone bank instead of entering it separately. And that might be confusing to a few people, but all you need to do is click on the link to open virtual phone bank and it will take you to that specific call list. One person pointed out that one of her reservations about phone banking includes the fact that she doesn't personally like to get calls from phone bankers. She hates to admit that, but what would you say to that, Dina? Any thoughts on that? Maybe we don't have her.
All right, I'm having mute trouble. So I would say—
I am a volunteer with State Representative Sydney Batch's re-election campaign. Is this Denise? Hey, it's nice to chat with you on the phone, Denise. State Representative Batch asked a bunch of us volunteers today to call around to our neighbors and just to check in to see how you're doing in the face of the COVID virus and all this sort of crazy stuff we're dealing with. How are you? Great. Well, anything in particular that you need that I might share with Representative Batch that might be helpful for you? Oh, okay. Well, I can totally relate to that. Representative Batch has done a great job for us here in Southern Wake County for the past couple of years over in Raleigh, and she's up for re-election in November. Are there any particular issues that are really most important to you as you look forward to November's election? Well, I toast you on that one for sure. Right. Well, it's a huge year in North Carolina. Not only is the president on the ballot, but so is the governor, the U.S. senator, and so are these incredible state representatives we have, like Sydney Batch, who's a Democrat and who's really been looking out for us here in Wake County. So really important for us to vote both at the top of the ballot and all the way down. These state reps are usually listed on the back of the second page or something. If you want to know more about Sydney Batch, she's got a great website, which is, in fact, sydneybatch.com. Her name is spelled SYDNEYBATCH. And there's great information there about her. Is there any particular message you might want me to convey to her, Denise? I'm so glad you're not mentioning that person's name. Totally get it. Right. 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 Me too. Me too. Right. It is a tough time, boy. It is just a tough time. Yeah. Wow. How are you getting food? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So you have what you need. Mm-hmm. Right, right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. I hear you. I totally hear you. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the thing that, I mean, right, 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 right. I guess they were unable to stop the rally from happening. I just glanced at the paper earlier. Right, right. Yeah. Well, my attitude, right. And the price I have to give, at least here in my hometown, is to make sure the people that I want representing me are in the city council and mayors of the city and representatives in our, exactly right, exactly right. So Sydney Batch is a fantastic candidate who I trust and who I believe will help get support Governor Cooper, exactly like you say, and give us the kind of safe policies that we need to persevere during these difficult times. Yeah, well, that's right, right. A lot of us will. Right, right, right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, definitely check out Sydney Batch's website. You'll be able to contact her directly through the website too if you need to. If she's fantastic, I think you will find her both very easy to talk to and very responsive to issues. She's, very concerned about healthcare and Medicaid expansion and public education and the kinds of issues that we haven't had sufficient support for in our current environment. I think you will really appreciate her. Well, I wish you good health, Denise. You and your right. Well, I totally get it, and I appreciate your hesitance. Right, right, right. Well, you take good care. Good health and well-being to you and your family. Take care. Bye. So that was interesting because she started off really taciturn, not particularly interested in talking. Who are you? Like, who's calling? Why are you calling? And then, as you could see, I couldn't shut her up. But, also I've had a lot of unaffiliated voters on this particular phone bank. And again, for people who are not frequent phone bankers, some of the information and you guys might have said this, but I haven't really been listening wholeheartedly to you guys, their party affiliation is listed so you can see right away. But she was clearly suspect. Her most important issue was she wouldn't even mention his name, getting the man out of the White House. And then I just, it turns out she has health issues. She's concerned about people not wearing masks. So very easy to have a lovely chat. She's going to check out Sydney Batch's website because she does research. It was great. I've had a lot of no answers or leaving messages, but that phone call, that'll give me at least another hour of energy and my fruit smoothie. So any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the phones. Bye.
Wait, one thing, Isabel, I do have a question. There were some comments about whether or not that was a person to ask to volunteer, and you chose
She has
not to.
health issues. Great question. Thank you for the reminder, but she hasn't been out of the house but twice in the past 3 months, and that was for health issues. And then she went on and on about her health. Also, I always try to remember to repeat the person's name if I'm speaking to that person, so that I'm, you know, sometimes I've got to scroll quickly back up because I forget the name of the person I'm calling, but I try to mention that person's name to make it a little bit more personal.
Also, Donna wants to know about the question about asking whether she would vote for Sydney Batch.
So she made it, I mean, it was very clear that she was Democratic leaning, but she went on about how she and her daughter have just had a conversation about being committed to research every candidate. So she said she was going to look at Sydney Batch's website. I wanted to make it clear to her that there was a way to contact Sydney. I will probably put a note in the file here that says, I mean, I know the campaign has a billion other things to do, but this is definitely a lean Sydney Batch voter, and a phone call from the campaign or from Sydney herself. I mean, just like a note, you know, there's some people, sometimes I get someone on the call who I know the campaign really should call. That's not how I feel about this voter. Very subjective, admittedly. I feel pretty confident this person will vote for Sydney, but I don't know that for sure. So I'll just make a note saying, lean heavily, doing research. If you have a minute, give a call.
Sean, does that make sense to you that she would put that note in that case? Or is that one where it's better to just code it and move on?
No, absolutely. I'm perfectly happy for you to take notes. And as a matter of fact, that's a big part of our debrief call. If you have a conversation like that with a voter that you feel it would be best served if I give them a call, please feel free to make a note of that and let's talk about it on the debrief.
Thank you. All right, Isabel.
All right, see you guys in a bit.
Dina, I can't remember how we left things.
Yeah, Patience asked a question, which, you know, someone had a really good point. She herself hates to receive calls, and so it's a roadblock for her to want to be the one making the calls. And you have to say, I fall into sort of that camp. I'm kind of on the end of the spectrum with Vicky. I don't like to be on the phone in any direction. But I feel like it's kind of the other side of the coin. You know, people like feeling this way that I do about making phone calls, knowing how important it is, kind of need to lean into that discomfort and do it anyway because of, you know, how important this is to get folks elected. And on the other side, people who don't like to receive calls, you know, we're certainly not going to impose ourselves on anybody. So it's a numbers game. A lot of people won't answer the phone in the first place, or once you get them, they're going to want to end the call really quickly. That's just part of it, and that's okay. But what we're doing is reaching out to, you know, everybody on the list, because a certain number of them are going to have that conversation. Like the person that Isabel just spoke to, she started off being like, I don't know if I want to have this conversation. But after a minute.
Hey, Megan, my name is Isabel. I am a volunteer with State Representative Sydney Batch's re-election campaign. How are you doing today?
One moment.
I'm good. Representative Batch asked a bunch of us volunteers today to give a call to some of our neighbors just to check in to see how you're doing. I know Representative Batch wants to check in to be sure that everyone's got what they need. How are you doing, Megan? You doing okay? Yeah, right. You got what you need, food and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's great. Well, Representative Batch has been doing a great job for us here in Southern Wake County. She's been at the North Carolina General Assembly for the past couple of years, and she's up for re-election this November. Sydney Batch will be on the ballot. Any particular issue that is like especially important to you, Megan, as you look forward to the November election? Right. Well, Sydney Batch is a wonderful Democratic candidate. And of course, as you probably know, here in North Carolina, one of our jobs is to flip that legislature blue so that we can get the kinds of blue policies that we are very much in need of. And she's just a terrific candidate. You might want to check out her website, which is simply sydneybatch.com. It's SYDNEYBATCH. I think you would find her policies and recommendations and all the things she's been working for on our behalf the past couple of years very reassuring. Anything in that would be great. Well, I appreciate that very much, Megan, and you take a good have a good day today, and I hope you'll join me in re-electing Representative Sydney Batch come November. Take care. So not a committed, I mean, clearly wants another unaffiliated, clearly wants Trump out of the White House. No one I haven't spoken to that many people. No one has said, oh, I know Sydney Batch. So sort of talking about mentioning the name a lot of times, referring to the website is important. No particular issue of concern beside the White House for this voter. Not enthusiastic enough, at least from my subjective point of view, to ask her to be a volunteer. May I go on?
Any questions, Paige?
Question.
No specific questions for Isabel.
Thank you. Just lots of thanks to you, Isabel, and appreciation.
Yeah.
This is great.
A lot of appreciation, yes. I do have a couple of general questions. Liz wants to know, do you find that there's a better time of day to do a phone bank? I hesitate to call during the dinner time. Is that something that
That might be a Sean question.
Sean could answer for us?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's pretty marginal. We've certainly during the weekends, we prefer calling during the afternoon, as opposed to, and especially, you know, if you live in the South on Sundays, call after church time. Absolutely. But during the week days, same thing with church on Wednesday evenings. We try to avoid that, even though obviously a lot of churches are closed right now. Still, people are still doing church online. But, you know, anytime between 5 and 7 is, again, you know, your chances of actually connecting with someone is pretty low. So it's not a huge concern.
Thank you. And then there's a comment from Anne that I'd just like to read to everybody. She said, I have found that during COVID-19, when people are spending more time at home, they are friendlier and more open to calls.
Nice. All right, Dina, we're throwing it back to you.
I think I was wrapping up my maybe long-winded answer, but essentially it's, you know, keep on calling. And if that person doesn't want to receive your call, you respect that. But we're going for the ones who will receive our messages and our calls. And that it's just important for us to kind of lean into that discomfort and do it anyway.
Thank you so much, Dina. That was really helpful. We are now going to go to Susan Lindsay, who's going to give us the nitty-gritty about coding, recording the data. Susan, we can't hear you yet. Can you unmute yourself?
So one of the most important things we're doing, aside from cleaning the list at this stage of the game, is we are recording certain kinds of data for the campaign. And we held this up before. This is the little cheat sheet that we have on how to code calls. And I want to talk to you about 3 important tips about coding. And a lot of these are going to be about how to code not home. All right. First of all, when you call up a voter on your screen, you're going to see a red box just below their name and just above the script that says, I couldn't reach so-and-so. So here's my 3 tips. First, when in doubt, choose not home. Because when you choose not home, that person is going to go directly back into the pool of people to be called. They will be called at another phone bank. Not home covers a lot of territory, okay?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I have a question for the whole team. What is a party affiliation of O?
Ooh.
Must be other, which could be Constitutional Party, Libertarian Party.
Okay, I'm going back. Sorry, I've never seen O before. Bye.
Okay, so If you can't connect with the voter, you go to that box and you'll get a little menu that comes down with different options for you to choose. The first one is not home, and that is always the safest option. And when in doubt, that's the one you should use. It covers a lot of territory. It covers if the voter hangs up on you right after you say your name. It covers if the voter says, I'm busy and can't talk right now, just code it as not home and they'll get called later on. If their voicemail hasn't been set up or if their voicemail is full, use not home. And oddly enough, if you get a recording that says no route found, that's not necessarily a wrong number. So you want to code that one not home. So the first rule is when in doubt, not home. The second tip is about how to record refused. Refused, when you code refused, that voter is removed from the list entirely and forever. So you only want to use refused when the voter tells you never call me again, or if they're actively hostile. The third one that I want to talk about, are we listening to Isabel now? Or should we be? No, okay. The third one is callback. We like to tell people to use callback for when the candidate or the campaign should call the voter back, okay? So if somebody says, I'm busy and I can't talk now, code that as not home. Click callback when there's something specific the campaign should do, like when Isabel had a different situation there, but here's situations where that works sometimes. If somebody's having trouble connecting to a local resource, like for COVID, if somebody needs to talk to the candidate about a specific issue. And one time I had a guy who said he was very involved in a lot of different veterans organizations, and he wanted the candidate to call him about speaking to that group. And you'll make a note at that point at the bottom of the script about what it is they want that they should talk about. So those are my 3 tips. The 3, they answer probably the most questions that we get on the chat about coding stuff. So if when in doubt, code not home so the person stays on the list and we call them back. Use refuse very rarely and only when you absolutely know the voter should be removed from the list. And call back, try to make that about something specific. And if you can get an email address for the person, that'll help a lot. So those are my 3 tips for using the little coding cheat sheet we've got. But also, as Dina said, if other situations come up or you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask your NOC point person or the campaign organizer, like Sean. We often get questions in the chat and we answer each other's questions, and you can always get help there. You also have that point person's phone number if you're not using the chat, so you can text them or call them also. So those are my coding tips, and happy phone banking. And remember, people might not remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. So that's one of the reasons why to go ahead and be yourself on a phone bank. So there you go.
Susan, are the coding tips, the cheat sheet that you have, are those sent out every different phone bank?
Yes, we are going to be sending those out with every phone bank that we do. Yeah.
Okay. And are there sometimes differences between campaigns in terms of how?
My name is Isabel. Is this Roger? Roger, I'm a volunteer with State Representative Sidney Batch's re-election campaign. How are you today? Okay, take care. So really good example of a coding question. Roger was also suspect of who I was. When I told him I was a volunteer with State Representative Sidney Batch, he said, listen, I really don't want to talk about that. So I'm going to actually code that not home. he didn't, I wouldn't code it refuse because he didn't say, I'm a Republican and I hate anyone who's gonna, not that I even mentioned that Sydney was a Democrat, but he's someone who deserves another phone call. Sean, am I making the right decision?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right.
Okay. So, you know, it felt a little icky that he said that, but I'm eating slivered almonds and drinking my fruit smoothie. So I'm going to just mark it not home and move on. Speak to you guys later.
Okay, and I just wanted to point out that Maria asked the question, if the voter speaks Spanish and I speak Spanish, is it okay to keep talking? And the answer is yes, absolutely. But then there was another question, if I don't speak Spanish and the caller does, is that a callback? I know that, I mean, I can answer specifically for Ricky Hurtado's campaign. You know,
Hey, James, my name's Isabel. I'm a volunteer with Democratic State Representative Sydney Batch's re-election campaign. How are you doing today? All right, well, any chance you'd be game to join me as a volunteer for Representative Sydney Batch? All right, well, thank you very much. You stay healthy and well, and thanks for helping to re-elect Sydney Batch to the North Carolina General Assembly. Take care, peace. All right, so there's a case where he said, hang on one second, let me just do whatever I have to do to my phone. He said, listen, I'm a Democrat, I'm voting Democrat all the way. You don't have to worry about me. You got my vote. Will you be willing to volunteer? No, peace out, peace. So, you know, an easy, quick, he's a strong supporter. See you guys later.
okay, and then just picking up where we left off, the question of if I don't speak Spanish and the caller does, is that a callback? I know that with Ricky Hurtado's campaign, there's specifically a place on to record that somebody speaks Spanish, and then you make a note of that, and Ricky will call that caller back. Sean, for Sydney's campaign, should we just make a note that the speaker speaks Spanish? How would you like that handled?
Yeah, that's right. I believe there's an option to note that on there.
Okay. And there's another question for Sean. There's a discussion in the Google chat, apparently, among the people who are calling about texting. Is it okay to text people? Someone has said it's illegal to text people unless it's an opt-in situation. Do we have guidance on that?
Well, I don't necessarily know if it's illegal or not, but our guidance is to not do that. We cannot solicit via text. However, Robin in the chat also just made a good point. If someone asks you explicitly to text them, then go ahead. That's perfectly fine. But you know, our policy as it is now is we don't text with no solicit whatsoever. So that's where
okay, well, that's good clarification, because I've been in situations where people have said, you know, don't give me the website verbally, text it to me. So that's okay to do.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And another question, just in general, is Laura wants to know if Isabel is calling from her personal phone number or is it a Google Voice number? She's getting a higher pickup rate than Laura had a few weeks ago. Do we know whether Isabel uses a Google Voice number, or is she using her regular phone number?
I use my regular phone.
But she has a 919 number, so that may help.
Okay. And Matt wants to know, for the level of support question, is that a judgment, or should that only be completed if you can specifically ask the question? That's a good question. Sean, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, could you repeat that?
Yeah, for the level of support for Sydney question, is that a judgment call, or should it only be completed if you can specifically ask the question?
Only completed if you specifically ask it.
Okay, and I will follow up by saying that different campaigns deal with this differently. So if you make some calls for Ricky Hurtado's campaign, they actually don't specifically ask the call. They ask us to make an assessment based on the quality of our conversation. So it's important to do what each specific campaign asks you to do in that regard.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
No additional questions at this time. But
What just came up though is you all had asked me right before we switched to Isabel, which is you will see slight variations from campaign to campaign about the choices you're given in the drop-down menus. So it is important for the campaigns to tell us in the beginning how they want us to handle those, and for you to expect some variation going on from campaign to campaign. So
I have a screenshot of what this campaign is using, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so is it time now to shift to me, right? I think, folks, we've covered the basics. Those of you who are comfortable and ready to dive in, please do that. We're gonna show you a screenshot in just a sec of how to get into OpenVPB. And let me just say, if you're still not ready to do this, if you're still not comfortable, we will keep this open and going so that we can continue to monitor Isabel, who's going to get an Academy Award, I'm sure, for all this. So you decide, but we'd appreciate it if you'd put in the chat what you decide to do, because we need to know if anybody's still here with us. Keep your video on so you'll feel like you have company. Even if you're making calls, you need to turn off your mic, of course. So we can't have everybody talking at the same time, but keep your video on and switch gears.
Oh, so sorry to trouble you. Take good care.
Patience.
Bye.
Isabel's got some. What was
That
that?
was a wrong number. So sorry, but I just
Okay,
speak.
they happen too. Okie doke, let me show you now. I have to share the screen. Hang on. And there was a link in the email that you got from Sue Blaylock that was a link to get into the OpenVPB. If you click on that link, it will open up this screen on your computer. Without getting into the details, this can happen two ways. This time, the list number for the phone bank was included in the link, so it will go straight in. Some groups that we have phone banked for, you open VPB and then you separately enter the list number. But this time it's like this, so you click on Get Started, and because I seem to have
Peter Caldwell.
Sorry.
Hey, Peter, my name is Isabel. I am a volunteer with State Representative
There we
Sydney Batch's reelection campaign. How are you doing today?
I get it to move. Sorry, folks. Here we go. Then after you clicked on that, then it will open up, and this is just like logging into.
I think we're listening to Isabel for a second.
He was not interested in speaking to me. He's busy marking him as not home. Speak to you later.
Got it.
Sorry to be interrupting, but I figure when I get a live wire, I should share.
Yep. Good job. So anyway, you will log into this. It's straightforward. It's like logging into anything ever else you've done. Your email address and your password. Don't forget what it is. And then click on login. This is a separate screenshot on the right here. You will then, after I enter my password, this will pop up. And if you have set up your account to get a verification code, you will get a code on your phone. You enter it here and then click on verify. And then the very next screenshot will show you what you get. This would be the very next step. You see, someone has asked about how do you know which names will be for you. Think of the call list as a deck of cards, that there's one list number for this deck of cards, and somebody is dealing them out to you one at a time. So if you get a name, like I have Sylvia Steins here, I'm the only person that will be delivered this particular person's thing. I don't need to worry that somebody else will get the same number. I don't need to figure out who else is calling. It will just deal out one at a time for me as I'm ready for them. Now we also had the questions about how do you code the call. You see this section here, the red, this is what Susan Lindsay referred to a little while ago. I couldn't reach Sylvia. if in fact she doesn't answer or whatever, you would click on that, and the next thing will pop up would be this list of choices. These are the choices that Susan Lindsay was describing, that you would decide whether she was not home, she was deceased, she's moved. These are the choices. So you enter those in, and then it will click to go to the next person, and it will pop up with the next person in the list. So it just cycles through them. It's really pretty easy. We deal with a lot of different software these days, and I have to say, I think OpenVPB works more smoothly than a lot of other stuff we are dealing with. So I think it's a pretty decent software. Any questions about that? Now, like I said, peel off if you're ready. I'm going to stop this here. Peel off if you're ready, and we'll all do it about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back at, say, 2:45 for a little touch base if you'd like, optional. But for real, at 3 o'clock, we will have our follow-up with Sean, the after session, where we review how things went for everybody. So
I have some additional questions, Susan, so we can just keep answering them for anybody who is
sure, just peel off if you're ready.
Okay, Janet wants to know, can you call a Google number back? When I've left a message, people will sometimes call me back, or will see the missed call and call me back. And the answer to that is yes. And in fact, on Google Voice, I use the Google Voice app on my phone. You can create different messages. So, you know, if you really wanted to get into it, you could actually create a message specific to the campaign. That's what I do. So when people call me back, I don't want to answer my Google Voice number when I'm not in my phone bank. So if they call me back an hour or two later, they'll get a specific message, voicemail message that I've created, for instance, for the Sydney Batch campaign, that gives them her website and tells them that I was a volunteer for Sydney Batch. Patty wants to know, is it okay to sign up for a phone bank if I'm available for less than the whole time? And the answer to that also is yes, absolutely. Sign up and make as many calls as you can and then leave. That happens a lot. Susan wants to know, for the which issues is important question, if the person says other, is there a place right there where I can enter what they said, like others not wearing masks, etc.? This might be specific to the campaign, but I know that when we called for Ricky Hurtado, they wanted us to put the other reason in the notes. I'm not sure if Sean is still on, or how it is with this campaign, but for Ricky Hurtado's campaign, we put the other reason in the notes at the bottom of Virtual Phone Bank.
Yeah, I can answer that. I mean, if it's pertinent to, if you think it's going to be pertinent to their votes, I would encourage that. If it's kind of a one-off issue that, isn't as relevant, you don't have to worry about it as much. It's not as big of a priority for us.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I'm scrolling here to see if we have some more questions. If I leave a message and someone calls me back, is there any way that I can go back to that person's page to record what she said after I already closed it earlier?
I believe that you can. I don't think it depends on how the OpenVPB link is set up. I've actually never encountered this specific issue. I believe that you can scroll back. If not, just write it down and someone on the campaign will take care of it after the phone bank.
Okay, this has actually happened to me, and I was not aware that there was any way to go back. So I have, in that situation, I would have sent you an email or text explaining that if there were any additional information I thought you should have. Okay. Chris wants to know, well, I think maybe this was answered okay already. Well, Maria said, can you show what we do if they do answer? And I think that's what we're doing with Isabel. But in terms of recording the data, don't feel like you have to be recording the data as you talk. Just have the conversation. The script will be right in front of you. And when you're done with the conversation, you can then go and click the pertinent answers to the questions that you've asked.
Patience, I actually have a person up in my VPB. I could quick show my screen and just show
Okay,
what
great.
that. So. if it's going to let me use my cursor. That's the big question. So this is my call. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll go through it, and if she answers, I'll just record whatever she says, and then I'll keep scrolling through what her most important thing is. Each question that we're asking has a corresponding drop down, and this is the volunteer question, and then if you have notes, and then afterward I would click save and next call. That's it. Otherwise I would say I couldn't reach Catherine and it would take me to these choices.
Okay, Chris says I didn't answer her question, so let me read this. Maybe someone else can help me understand exactly what she's asking here. She said, if I'm using Google Voice, how does the verify in OpenVPN work?
That will be I don't know. I would assume that whatever phone number she gave for her account
Speak with Alejandro, please.
That's where the number
Hey,
is.
Alejandro, my name is Isabel. I am a volunteer with State Representative Sidney Batch's re-election campaign. How are you doing today? I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. State Representative Batch asked a bunch of us volunteers to call around to some of our neighbors just to check in and see how we're doing in the face of the COVID virus and all the other sort of crazy stuff that's going on. How are you doing, Alejandro? Wow, that's great. You got what you need. You've got food and work and all that. Wow. Well, I know that Representative Batch will be delighted to hear that, and I'm delighted to hear it too. She's been doing such a good job for us here in Southern Wake County for the past couple of years. She's a fabulous Democrat, and she's up for re-election again in November. When you look forward to the election in November, any particular issues that are especially important to you that I might be able to share with Representative Batch? Wow, excellent. Okay, I'm definitely going to make note of that. Are you in that business by any chance? Wow, well, thank you for your service. I really appreciate that so much. You know how important this election is coming up in November. The state representatives that we elect will help to figure out state maps and all that. So getting good Democrats in the legislature and keeping them there is a really important point. If you'd like to learn more about Sidney Batch, you can go to her website. It's SYDNEY Batch, SydneyBatch.com. Any other questions I might be able to share with her or concerns that you have? Okay, well, I hope you'll join me in re-electing Sidney Batch come November. Take care. So there's an interesting call, a guy who's a Democrat. The most important issue for him is increasing police funding. Is he a member of that work? Yes, he is. I didn't pursue it more. He was clearly not going to let me know. He is a registered Democrat. No other particular information. So we just had a pleasant call and definitely an undecided voter, in my opinion. Questions, comments?
Becca, can you scroll to the bottom, because I've got a lot of questions to deal with before that, and I can't see if anybody put something in right away.
Sure. You mean just to call out questions?
Did somebody ask Isabel a question?
Oh, well, this is maybe more for Sean. Have issues come up about Black Lives Matter and the protests / quote riots? Most of us are white. Any suggestions about addressing racial issues and concerns?
I'm going back to the call.
Thanks, Isabel.
Well, if anyone asks any questions related to that, I would refer them to Sydney's website. She did not make a blog post about this specific issue, but she did mention it at length in her legislative newsletter. You know, I would just kind of deflect and just refer them to the website. Sydney mentions it briefly, but it's not extensive. But that's just kind of a way for you to kind of get off of a hot topic issue there.
Okay, thanks. There are a couple people who have said, and this isn't for you specifically, Sean, but that they're first-time callers, they can't call today. How do they make sure they'll be contacted for the next meeting? So I would say to them, in every email that we send out on Monday, we have a list of our upcoming phone banks, and you can also find all of our upcoming phone banks for our 4 candidates on our neighborsoncall.org website under phone banks. So you can go to our website or check our Monday email to sign up even a month in advance for our upcoming phone banks for our 4 candidates.
And with Sydney, I'll say, you know, we have a volunteer sign up form on our website as well. Neighbors on Call does phone banks on certain dates, but we allow our volunteers to call anytime they've got, like, if you've got 15, 30 minutes on an evening night, we make sure you have the tools to do that. So if you want to help Sydney out as well, feel free to sign up on our website, and our volunteer coordinator will reach out to you.
Okay, great. We've gotten some questions about how to set up a Google Voice number, and we're not going into the specifics of that today, obviously, but Susan said we will email some info about getting a Google Voice number with our follow-up email. So we will send out some information to people if you're interested in pursuing that option. It's, you know, obviously you don't have to have a Google Voice number to phone bank, but if you want to have a different number than your usual number, then you can do that.
Patience, there was one specifically about Isabel's last call.
That's right, from Pam. Okay.
Yeah, you got that?
Yeah, will Isabel, this, for the last call that she made, the question was, will Isabel code him as unsure or leave it blank? I would guess that she would have coded that as unsure. Do you think? Whether he would vote for Sydney?
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think she said she was going to do undecided or
Okay.
whatever version of that there is.
Okay, and Patty wants to know, is the basic process the same for each of the 4 candidates with tweaks to the scripts and coding?
Yes, is my answer.
Okay, thanks, Susan.
My name is Isabel. I am a volunteer with State Representative Sydney Batch's reelection campaign. How are you doing today? Hi. I don't really to say refused. He's an unaffiliated voter, but in the interest of having the campaign, it's only June. So in the interest of having the campaign reach out to him again, I'm going to write not home. See. My name is Isabel. I am a volunteer with State Representative Sydney Batch's reelection campaign. How are you today? That's great. Well, Representative Sydney Batch asked a bunch of us volunteers to call around to some of our neighbors this afternoon just to check in, you know, in the midst of the COVID virus and all the stuff that's going on in the world. Representative Batch just wants to make sure that everyone's got what they need. How are you hanging in there? Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that, and now you've hung up on me.
That happens too.
It does.
Where portion of screen? Oh, I have no idea what that is. So he said, thanks for your call, and then hung up. So I'm going to say not home because he sure deserves another phone call. And you know, does that hurt my feelings? It hurts my feelings a little bit, right? Like, why didn't he just he sounded nice enough. He's a 40-year-old man, but you know, got to move past it and make another call because I only have 12 minutes. And I want to know how many calls I made when I get back on the phone with Sean. So bye, see you later.
Vicki, I have a question for you. You're here, we'll unmute you. I brought my reward here with me. I have my little bag of cookies. And I want to know if I've done enough to get a cookie, even though I haven't actually placed a call yet. I did sneak one a little while ago. Can I have another cookie?
Susan, we know what you've done to get ready for this and what you will do after this. You can have 2 cookies.
Vicki, somebody did say they were going to go make calls and have a margarita.
I
So-
saw that, a person after my own heart.
okay, yeah.
Well, I would take a margarita right now if I had the fixins.
Hey, Brandy, my name is Isabel. I am a volunteer with State Representative Sydney Batch's reelection campaign. How are you doing today? That's good to hear. Representative Batch has been working on our behalf in Southern Wake County for the past couple of years, and she's going to be on the ballot again in November. Representative Batch just asked a bunch of us volunteers to call around and check in with our neighbors this afternoon and see, you know, how you're doing in the face of COVID and all the craziness. How are you and your family holding up, Brandy? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. You've got everything that you need? Well, that's great. You know, Representative Batch will be up for re-election on the ballot in November. And as we're all looking for toward the election in November, wondering if I might share with Representative Batch any issues that are of particular interest to you and your family. Okay, well, I'm so sorry to trouble you, but I hope you'll join me in re-electing Senator Sydney Batch to the North Carolina General Assembly in November. Take care. Bye. First caller of the day with an R next to her name, but perfectly friendly, completely non-committal. Just get the name of the candidate out there and move on.
Oh. And that's one thing that varies across campaigns for the 4 people that we're working for, right? Most of the campaigns, we are calling just Democrats or unaffiliated voters, but it appears that a Republican might pop up in a Sydney Batch call and possibly also in a call for Terrence Everett. Is that right, Susan?
We had,
Sorry, there are too many Susans.
Yeah, either one, yeah.
The Terrence is going to do a new system where they have multiple lists, and you get to pick your list. Some might have Republicans in it, some are really extremely Democratic, and then there's sort of a middle ground, so that you pick the list based on what you're comfortable with. And if you feel brave and bold and don't mind calling a few Republicans, you select that list. Otherwise,
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it'll be clearly labeled. This is a new thing. And so you'll be seeing that. I forget when that takes effect the first time.
we did it yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
Or
wow.
did Thursday, I guess it was Thursday when we called.
Did you get any feedback on that, Susan? Susan L?
Yeah, no, not in particular. I mean, we had the usual, nobody's answering, or it was the usual phone bank. So, and I didn't look at her slide. I was busy getting ready for this, about how many volunteers, but that was one way that they were using to try to focus on getting more phone bankers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was why that list was important to them. They were trying to build a volunteer corps.
Got it. Probably a lot more potential volunteers when you call Dems than when you call Republicans.
Highly supportive Dems. They were, you know, this was a
Yeah.
strong.
And they can produce lists that have people on them that they gauge to be very supportive of Democratic candidates.
In about 2 minutes, Sean will come back on and we will turn the session back over to Sean, since he's this will be the campaign's follow-up session. And so I'm twiddling my thumbs that he will be back soon.
I think it's important to point out too that the debriefing at the end is optional, the Google Hangout is optional, but it does help create a sense of community, and it is always wonderful to get back on at the end and hear that as a group you made so and so many calls and you talked to so many people and this many people and you recruited this many volunteers, and you see that your effort, you know, it might feel insignificant to you, but combined with the efforts of everyone else who was calling on that particular day really does add up to something significant and substantial.
Yes, I think it gives a good sense of closure and celebration and all of those things.
Here's a nice comment from Carol. She said, as a first timer, I know I probably would not consider doing this had I not had this fabulous training experience. Thanks so much.
Good. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you, Carol.
thanks for saying that, Carol.
And tell your friends.